Hello again, everybody, and welcome to the Mike Francesa podcast on the Bet Rivers Network, brought to you by Casamigos Tequila. Casamigos Tequila is brought to you by those who drink it. A football Friday for week number 4 already. Nothing flies like the NFL. Next thing you know, it'll be 8 weeks in Halloween, and before you know it, it's Thanksgiving. It goes very, very fast, and it began last night with a very tough night for Giant fans and for the football Giants. You want to call it hard fought, I'll buy it, but a disappointing in so many different ways. A disappointing 20-15 loss to the Cowboys. Had their chances, had their opportunities. Close game throughout. At one point, the Cowboys had an 8-point lead. That was it. Um, but the Giants now fall to 1-3. They go to Seattle after they get a little rest. And then they have Cincinnati in prime time coming back off that. So at 1-3, staring into the abyss, and it could be a very, very long football season for the Giants if things don't turn around very quickly. And playing in Seattle won't be easy in week, in 11 days. It will not be an easy chore by any stretch of the imagination. But we get ready for a football weekend. Interesting one, like always. A couple of big games. 2 Monday nighters on tap again. One is ho hum because no one's more ho hum than the Titans, and the Dolphins aren't very exciting right now. Although their quarterback situation is a complete train wreck. And the other one, of course, the Seahawks and the Lions. And the Lions have a couple of big injuries. They lost Ragnow. Davenport's out. They got some big guys hurt on that team right now. So they get Seattle, which is one of the undefeated teams, on Monday night. That's the other game. And then the Sunday night game is a big game and a statement game as the Bills. And everybody's on that Bills bandwagon after their beating, their pounding of Jacksonville against the 1-2 Ravens, who came off a win against the Cowboys, now try to get to 2-2. And you want to see just how good this Buffalo attack is when they take on the Ravens on Sunday night. So that'll be very interesting. Packers and Vikings. Love is a game time decision. I would think they will push to get him in there. They've won the games with the backup, but they like to get their young star quarterback in there against the 3-0 Vikings. The Vikings, one of the real stories of the early season, behind Sam Darnold, who has 8 touchdown passes, 2 intercepts, and the 3 wins. You have Minnesota 3-0. You have the Steelers 3-0. You have the Bills 3-0. The Seahawks 3-0, and the Chiefs, as always, 3-0. And that's what you have. You have a couple of winless teams, and the winless teams are really singing the blues. We'll get to them as we unfold the schedule. But Vikings and Packers, always a big game, and a little added incentive now because the Vikings playing so well to start the season. Denver comes off a win in Tampa, and an impressive win. Knicks didn't play overly well the first 2 weeks. He was dinking and dunking. He got things going against Tampa last week. Now they come play the Jets. The Jets have had the rest after their win of the Patriots. The Jets, Minnesota next week, and then the Monday nighter with Buffalo. Would love to get to 3-1. They should get to 3-1. Moses is out. Don't know about Mosley. He hasn't practiced. We'll see if he plays or not. But Denver comes. I don't know. I didn't check whether Denver stayed in the East or went back. I don't know what Sean did. I figure he went home. They played Tampa. Now they have to come back across the country again if they went home. But tall order for the Broncos, but they did get a win last week and their young quarterback. So you don't take anybody lightly in this league, especially the way the underdogs have played so far. They've been in almost every game. The Saints and the Falcons will meet in Atlanta. Saints lost their center. Atlanta lost their center. Big loss. Plus, they have a banged up right tackle. We saw what that meant for them in the game against Kansas City. Falcons at 1-2 really have to be kicking themselves after the loss to the Chiefs last week. Saints 1-2 after coming back to earth last week against the Eagles. This is always a highly underrated rivalry. This is one of the more intense rivalries there is in this league, and it doesn't get a lot of play. A lot of years these teams have been great, but the Saints and the Falcons have a bit of rivalry, and they meet again in a very, very interesting game from a standpoint of especially the Falcons, who don't want to get buried early in the season. The Rams, who made an incredible comeback, as beat up as they were, with so many people out, with their wide receivers out, come back from 2 touchdowns back to stun the Niners last week. Big win. Now they get the Bears. Let's be honest. Bears haven't played well. They should be 0-3. They're 1-2. Their prized quarterback hasn't played well. It happens with rookie quarterbacks. We'll see what happens here, but the Rams, with their coaching, with their quarterback, you'd have to give them the edge here, although they are extremely, extremely banged up. Steelers are 3-0. Take on the 1-2 Colts, who have not gotten really good play yet from their young quarterback. You know they can run the football, but they've been run on. Now, here comes Pittsburgh at 3-0. Fields, who everyone thought would have to take a seat to Russell Wilson. Wilson's not ready to play yet, but I'm not sure he'd play anyway because Fields is 3-0 and he's looked a little better each week. He hasn't been great, but remember, this is one of the few teams in Pittsburgh that treats its quarterback like a complimentary player. They don't look for their quarterback to carry them. They look for their defense to carry them, their hard-hitting nature to carry them, and then get just enough plays to win the game. And right now they're 3-0. Let's see if they can get to a 4-0 start, which would be very, very nice for this team. And there's been talk about what the future holds for Wilson when he gets healthy. He's not going to be happy sitting on the bench. Would he go somewhere else before the trade deadline? I don't think that will happen, but you never know. Eagles 2-1 off the win last week against the Saints in Tampa to take on the 2-1 Bucs. The Eagles could be without both wide receivers, without Brown and Smith, which means they are going to run the ball with Barkley and Hurts even more than they do in normal weeks. That's what they're going to try and do, is control the game that way and see if they can eke out another victory. The Bengals, and there has to be serious concern with everything going on with the Bengals, but especially their pathetic defense, which has gotten beat up on the defensive interior by injuries. Now they get to play a Panther team that was completely rejuvenated. Went out and beat the Raiders with Dalton at quarterback. Bengals know a little bit about Dalton. They are, as we said, highly rejuvenated. Now, one thing, Dalton's going to be down a couple of receivers, it looks like, in this game, as Thielen's on the injured reserve, and they could be without another starting receiver too. So they could be down a couple of their playmakers, which bears some watching. But hey, are the Bengals going to lose to Carolina and open 0-4? The era with Burrows, which people expected so much, looks like it's closing. The window of opportunity, even for a team that has a quarterback in its prime, can close very quickly. And they have a lot of trouble right now in Cincinnati. Things are not looking good. Washington, things are looking up there. And they couldn't be happier with the play of their young quarterback, who has been very good so far. They got a win against the Giants. I understand that the Giants losing the field goal kicker made a big difference in that game, but they won the game, and then they put on a surprising effort. I did not see that coming in Cincinnati. I thought They might score some points, but I thought Cincinnati would score a bunch more. I thought Cincinnati would score 30. They did, but I didn't think they'd ever have a game where they could not stop the Commanders at all. I mean, they made every play that they had to make, and their young quarterback looks sensational doing it, and they're very excited at 2-1. Now they go to Arizona to take on the up and down, and they are the up and down Cardinals. You just don't know what you're going to get out of them week to week. So some young talent, some future NFL stars on the field for this game, including Marvin Harrison Jr., who has made his presence felt the last couple of weeks. Should be a tight game, and should be some should be some points scored in that game too. The Pats, they looked miserable against the Jets. They just looked like they had no answers. Their offensive line, a big problem. Now, how long before they go to the young quarterback? We'll see. They opened the season by stunning Cincinnati. Now they lose 2 in a row. They get the Niners, and the Niners, as we know, are all banged up. But the Niners are licking their wounds, blowing a 14-point lead to the Rams, and they can't go to 1-3, can they? I mean, is there anyone anywhere who would expect the Pats, as they're built right now, to go out to San Francisco and beat the Niners in a game? I understand the Niners have key injuries, but even with what they have to replace him with, they should be able to get the job done here. And, McCaffrey, the reports you're hearing are not great. So exactly when he's back is going to remain to be seen. But they need a win here in the worst way. The Browns are 1-2. The Raiders are 1-2. Neither team happy with anything. Browns have injuries, even on the defensive side, where Myles Garrett's been banged up with his feet. The Raiders, Antonio Pierce was threatening jobs after they lost to Carolina. He was furious with what went on there. Adams has got a hamstring, so we'll see what happens with that. One of the teams going to 1-3. The Browns are the better team, but their offense does not travel. And right now, they are really banged up on the offensive line. Chiefs at 3-0 get the Chargers. Chargers lost last week to the Steelers. They're 2-1, though. Interesting game. The Chiefs are 3-0. They've won 3 close games. They continue to find a way to win games. They got outplayed by the Bengals. They won. They got outplayed a lot by the Falcons. They won. They make the plays. Do they get a couple of breaks? A lot of people felt that a pass interference call was missed in the Bengal game. Clearly, without any dispute, Pitts on the 3rd and 5 play was with 5 minutes left, 4 minutes, almost 5 minutes left, was absolutely hacked in the end zone. No question it was pass interference. They don't call it. They don't kick the field goal. They go for it. And then when they get back down there, they can't convert on 4th and short. And they wind up losing a heartbreaker to the Chiefs. The Chiefs are not scoring. They got Worthy out of the box the first week. He's done nothing the last 2 weeks. Look for them to try and get him the ball. They don't have Pacheco, but you know what? The backup backs looked okay. Where is Kelsey? Now, I've talked a lot about that. There's been a lot of discussion about that. They need to get Kelsey back in this offense and also back in the end zone. The Chiefs are no longer explosive. They are clutch. They are good when they have to make a play, and their quarterback makes plays late in games better than anybody in the league. That's why he's who he is, and that's why they win. But their margin for error is extremely small right now because they don't score a lot of points anymore. Their defense, solid. Spags has done a great job there, led by a top player, a player that I think nationally doesn't get enough credit in Jones. I mean, he's that good, but they are not the same offense. in any way. Now, Worthy should become a bigger part of the offense with his speed. You have Rice there, who's been their go-to guy. The key is, can they get Kelsey jump-started here? He has really done absolutely nothing in the first 3 games. The Sunday night game, like I said, is one that jumped out at me, and I want to see exactly how the Bills show up in this one. People are all over the Bills now. The bandwagon could not be any fuller. It is completely packed. Everyone is, they got rid of the right guys. The offense is unselfish. He's got a million weapons. He feeds everybody. Everything's great. La, la, la. Hey, they haven't really played a big team yet. They played the Dolphins, who were in disarray. They played Arizona the first week, and that was a tough game. And then they played a Jacksonville team which didn't even show up on either side of the ball for the game. I'm not taking anything away from Buffalo. All I'm saying is don't have the parade yet. Let's see. And this is a great place to see. Now, Baltimore is starting to get the offensive line to mesh. Now, last week they rushed for 274 yards. They also need to start to get the defense where they want it. Remember, they lost their whole, really the nuts and bolts of their entire defensive coaching staff. That was a big issue. They've got to, and they lost some key guys too. So they need to have people get comfortable in what roles they have to play in this team now. They've come off a big win at Dallas. They will be ready for this game against Buffalo. So I think it's fascinating. How good is the Bills' offense? And the way to go after the Ravens is to run on them. Is that what Buffalo tries to do here, or does Buffalo try to go after them with the passing game? We'll see. I think they're going to try and run the ball on them and also keep the Raven offense off the field. Let's see how that works. But you're going to get if Buffalo continues and puts a 30-something spot up and wins this game, 35, 20, 24 or something like that, they have made a big statement in September, a very big statement. So this game's we're going to learn something here. You like the games early in the season where you learn something, you're going to learn something here. Then Monday night, the Titans are 0-3. Now, the Titans are 0-3, but their defense has played well. The Titans are 0-3 because their quarterback continues to make all kinds of mistakes and because they've had punts blocked at the wrong time in their first 2 games. The Dolphins are 1-2. Their offense going nowhere, but they don't have a pilot. And they haven't gone out and gotten one. Now, that makes you think they've already talked about Tua coming back and Tua wants to come back. I don't know what the deal is. I don't know how reluctant the league's going to be to let him come back. I don't know how much he wants to come back, but I don't think they can live with Huntley at quarterback or Skylar Thompson at quarterback. And this is a team where you will have a mutiny on your hands because if you think guys like Hill are going to sit back and have the season implode early in the year because nobody can get him the ball or waddle the ball or utilize Ashawn right or utilize Mostert. Hey, this team has weapons. You have to get somebody to pull the trigger. And right now, they don't have that. Now, this is a game they should be able to win. If they don't, their season is an utter disaster. Tennessee is rebuilding. If they continue to do it with Levis, which they really have no choice, he's going to continue to make mistakes. And the coach comes down on them hard, which can just compound the situation. Dolphins, just like you expect the Bengals to say, hey, enough nonsense. We're going to beat the Panthers today. You expect the Niners to say, we're 1-2. We are not going to number 1-3 under any circumstances and beat on the Pats. Same thing here. You expect the Dolphins to say, hey, let's get the ball to Ashawn. Let's get the ball to Hill. Let's get the ball to Wild. Let's go play football against the Titans. Then the Seahawks take their 3-0 record into Detroit to take on the Lions. Seahawks have some injuries. Walker's banged up. Offensive line's banged up. But they're 3-0. They're playing well under their new head coach. They're a dangerous team. Now they get a 2-1 Lion team, which won at Arizona last week. They have Ragnow out. They have Davenport out. They have a couple other injuries. They're not playing at 100%, but I would expect them to bounce back and get a win here against the Seahawks on Monday night. But hey, if the Seahawks ever win this game in Detroit and get to 4-0, again, they would have made the quantum leap into contender status. Buffalo with a win can stamp themselves as a legitimate threat to the Chiefs. Seattle wins, they stamp themselves as a legitimate, serious playoff contender in the NFC. Steelers get to 4-0, and you know this. They are not going to go away. So all that is right there. And if Minnesota with Sam Darnold gets to 4-0 winning at Green Bay, especially if Love plays, hey, another story there. Minnesota has sent a very, very strong September statement without any question. Emails when we come back. Now, remember, send your emails to Mike Francesa podcast at gmail.com. Let me tell you about the squares. You know, each week, if you play the same game parlays, which you can play, which are very popular on college football or on the NFL, you get the squares. So based on how much you play, then you can get 1, 2, or 3 squares, and it doesn't cost you anything. You get a little more action, and you get a chance to maybe collect $10,000 in the jackpot or other profit boosts along the way. Someone recently in the metropolitan area, I think it was right around Labor Day, won a $10,000 squares jackpot. So it's there for the taking, and it's just another way to enhance your action come this weekend. So play the squares game on. Just go to the Bet Rivers app and play the squares game when you play the same game parlays, which are so popular on any NFL game or on college football. Remember, there's a big college football game tomorrow night, Georgia and Bama. Georgia has shown a couple of vulnerabilities in the early season, but are they still Georgia? Alabama, under new leadership, but under an impressive young coach. If you compare him to Saban, he's young. He's not young. He's been around. He's had a great career, and now he's in Bama trying to fill the biggest shoes. So interesting, very interesting game. We also have baseball. Congrats to the Yankees for finally locking down the division. They have a 1-game lead for the 1 seed. You know they're getting a bye, so they get to sit back and wait. Now, the Cortez injury hurts because I thought that Cortez could become their best reliever come the postseason. I know we didn't love the job, but he wouldn't back down from the job, and he pitches well angry. He's shown that. Now, you don't know if he's going to come back at all this year. That's a big loss. Big loss. Really is. The other issue is everyone's into, do you play Dominguez? Do you play Verdugo? Can Verdugo hit enough to keep the job? Can Dominguez find his way around left field enough to keep the job? You saw the play that he didn't make in the first inning, got the Orioles started 2 nights ago. Dominguez is a bad fielder. Verdugo's been a nothing hitter since June, but he's a very good left fielder. See, the problem for the Yankees is they have 3 DHs. Stan's a DH, Soto's a DH, and Dominguez is really a DH. So, you know Stanton's going to DH. You got to have his bat. You got to have his power. I think they will pick this. I don't think Dominguez will play every single day, but I think they will pick his spots with him and see how they want to attack certain teams and certain pitchers, certain ballparks. Everything comes into account. What kind of guy? Is it a guy you can take out of the park? Is it a guy that, is a power guy that you want to go after with a big bat? There'll be room for Dominguez. But I think he and Verdugo will be a merit system. And then Verdugo will be in the game late. That's all there is to it. And you expect him to be in the game late. Hey, if they have to use a couple of defensive replacements late in games, so be it. The question is, as they do that, who's going to be getting the last out? Now, they have pitched well out of the bullpen at the end of the season. But there's no lock closer. And that's going to be very interesting because the guys you're going to tap have never done it. It's going to be a very, very big part of this. But hey, they have as good or better a chance to go to the World Series as they've had in a while. There's nobody in the American League that's better than they are. Now, I don't think they're a lot better than a couple of teams. And I'll tell you this, and this is a factor. They don't scare anybody anymore at Yankee Stadium at all. Teams come into Yankee Stadium and win all the time. That wasn't the case in the playoffs in the halcyon days of the 90s or early 2000s. That's not the day that people didn't want to play in Yankee Stadium. They didn't want to deal with the crowd. They didn't want to deal with anything. They didn't want to deal with the ghosts. Nothing. That's gone. They don't have a big home field advantage anymore. It's just the way it is. Now, the Yankees can win on the road, and they are as complete as any other team, maybe even more so. But I think it's very wide open in the American League. Yankees have a shot. There's no, like I said, if you want to make them the favorites, go ahead. But I just don't think the teams that would come in here, other than the Twins, they might not even make the playoffs. Probably won't. They're 3 games back. The young Tigers, I think it would be a tall order. But I don't even care if you're talking about Kansas City, which has played terribly of late, won a game yesterday that they shouldn't have had such a hard time winning. They didn't score until the 9th inning. You know, after getting 4 runs, getting a 4-1 lead and giving up a 3-run homer right away, they should have blown the game open. They didn't. They struggled, but then they did get the win. They have pitching. They have 2 really good players in Witt and Perez. But you might question them a little bit, but they don't look scared. But Baltimore has no problem beating the Yankees. Houston, has no problem beating the Yankees. And those are, still the most likely teams. Cleveland, you have to like Cleveland. You have to respect their bullpen. You have to respect their pitching. Lack of quality throughout the lineup would bother me with Cleveland. But it's going to be a fascinating postseason. And it's been a long time coming. So, do I think anything short of the World Series would be a disappointment? I think it would be a big disappointment, but I don't think it's anywhere. So, I don't think you should be supremely confident. I think you should be looking forward to it, but not supremely confident, because there's still some serious vulnerabilities with this team, and they're going to carry those into the postseason. All right, emails. Let's get to them before we bid you adieu. We will see you after the Jet game on Sunday. And then we'll also see where we are with the Mets. Now, remember, the Mets are in Milwaukee. You know where the action is starting the weekend. You know what is ahead of them if they have to settle it in Atlanta on Monday. Right now, with 3 games to go, the American League's pretty easy. You have Baltimore that's in, and then you have Detroit and Kansas City have 3-game leads on Minnesota. So they're in very good shape. In the National League, San Diego's in. Dodgers are going to win the division. San Diego's going to be a wild card. Then you have the Mets at 87 and 70. Arizona at 88 and 71. Remember, they have 3 games left. Mets and Braves have 5 games left. And then the Braves are 86 and 71. So right now, Mets and Arizona are in essence a tie. Mets have a 1 percentage point lead, but in essence, it's high. And the Braves are 1 out. Braves host Kansas City. Kansas City, with a win and a Minnesota loss, can lock up the wild card, and then would have nothing to play for the next couple of days. The Arizona and San Diego play. San Diego has a 3-game lead over. They have 68 losses, so they have a 2-game lead on the Mets and 3 in the loss column on Arizona. They play Arizona this weekend. They could lock things up and have a couple of days off too. So Arizona's playing San Diego. Mets are playing Milwaukee. Milwaukee is locked in. You know that. They're locked in. The only thing they're thinking about is who they're going to play. But all they're getting ready this weekend is to settle, get their team ready for the performance. They're playing. Phillies and Dodgers get to bye in the American League. Yankees and Cleveland get to bye. Houston will be playing as a division winner, and in the National League, obviously, Milwaukee will be playing. So Mets are playing Milwaukee, Braves are playing Kansas City, and San Diego's playing Arizona. That's where we are right now. And if it's still up in the air, the Mets and Braves will settle things on Monday. That's the way it looks right now as we head towards the weekend. So it couldn't be. Did the weather, and if you saw Atlanta today, it'll be Monday before they figure things out, because the part of Atlanta I saw today was underwater. The cars were covered in the street. All right, Claudio starts us off. As a fan of the Yankees, Giants, Rangers, and Knicks, have the Giants been the toughest team to watch in recent years? Well, you didn't mention the Mets there. You didn't mention the Jets there. As far as the Knicks, take last year into account, Rangers, yes, the Giants have been the most frustrating team. I think they've been extremely frustrating. And what's happened is all Giant fans, if you're old enough, know the great days that came in the 80s, the Parcells era, started by Ray Perkins, George Young as GM, and the Parcells 8 years, which was 2 championships and very good teams. The Coughlin years, 2 more upset Super Bowl wins. Since then, other than Fossil's run, obviously, with to play Baltimore and get trounced in that Super Bowl, they have had a hard time. And yes, there was a real down period from 65 to the early 80s. They've been in another one now for a very long time. It's been a tough chore for the Giants. It really has. They've been in one for a very long time. And they're still not out of it. It looked like they were coming out in Dable's first year. There's nothing right now that you can feel great about. You can like a couple of the young players. You can look at what Neighbors brings to the team. Okay, you can look at the possibilities on the defensive line and in the front seven, but it's a very disappointing team, and it's a long way from a winning one. Patrick, it's not even October, and once again, it's hard to envision anything but another losing season. What is the scenario where the Giants become a winning team again? Hey, need stability, which they're trying to build right now with this general manager and this head coach. I do not think they will be impatient with this head coach. I don't believe they will be. I'd be surprised if they will. I think Belichick will be back in the league next year. I do not think he'll be with the Giants. They need to be better in a lot of places. Now they've been better on the offensive line. They didn't run block last night, but they've pass block better. They didn't run block at all last night, which was surprising considering how bad Dallas had been against the run. But they need stability and they need better players. And they need better play from the quarterback position. Why do players, everyone wants to know why players seem to be getting hurt more frequently than even in the past. I don't know that that's true statistically. What I will say is injuries in this world where we live in such a technologically advanced era for media, everything is available. The information that is available for teams, for leagues, if you are an ardent fan, is enormous. And that's why you know more about the injuries all the time. They're discussed more. They are part of the information cycle now. They didn't used to be a big part of the information cycle. Now, especially with them having a partnership in the gambling, that has to be part of it. And that's why it is. So that's why it seems like there's more injuries. I don't really know if there's more teams, and every team is always going to have injuries. Now, a lot of people think, hey, the players get bigger and stronger. Yeah, but they don't hit as much away from the game itself. That should help. I don't know if it does, but they do have a lot of injuries in every sport. Look how many pitchers get hurt. And forget about what goes on in the NBA where guys rest just for rest. Rest just for rest's sake, which is, I think, been a disaster for the NBA. The whole load management deal. But I mean, think about the pitchers. What team doesn't have 2 and 3 pitchers down? If you go through a season and you don't have more than 3 pitchers down, you're ecstatic. The Reddick situation. Jonathan wants to know about the Reddick situation. What could happen? This has become a nightmare. It really has. They've handled it terribly. And it doesn't look like Reddick is going and his people are going to offer them any kind of lifeline. They are going to be pushed to the brink here. And I don't think it works out well for either side. You would have thought there'd be some common ground here. With each passing week, the idea of getting anything for him in a trade minimizes dramatically. Plus, considering what he wants, and if you cut the season down until closer to the trade deadline, you're going to get very little for him. It's going to be only a contingency pick based on what he does. What is the legacy of Jeff Hostetler? That he was a very smart quarterback who had a good career at West Virginia. He was a very good student and a very bright individual. And when he got called on, he was there to take his team all the way. He inherited a good team that knew how to play great. The 90 Giants were a good team. They weren't a great team. They weren't an overpowering team, but they were a team that didn't make mistakes offensively or defensively. Very few turnovers, an incredibly low number of turnovers. Very smart, made plays, and give the Giants and their coaching staff, Parcells, Ron Earhart, all of them, great credit, because when Phil Simms went down against Buffalo, here they were sitting as a legitimate Super Bowl threat. Number 2 in the NFC behind San Francisco, which was looking for the three-peat. They were 11-1 at one point. He goes down. They have to really redo the offense and go to much more of a jumbo look and a power running game behind a versatile, mobile quarterback who was not the passer that Phil was. And Hostetler did an exceptional job. Now, after that, he wanted to be the guy. It didn't work out for him. But the fact that he had the moment where he inherited a team and took them all the way, and he made plays. So many Giants made plays, but he made plays. And one of the great plays he made was in that Super Bowl when they got the sack, Buffalo did, when they were dominating the game in the second quarter. He held on. If he had fumbled the ball in the end zone and he got absolutely destroyed, he may have even been out for a minute, but he did not let go of the football. Instead of 7, it was 2. And instead of it being 17-3, it was 12-3. And the Giants came down at the end of the half, powered the ball down the field with their running game, kept the ball for a lot of minutes, and then hit touchdown Baker in the corner to make the game 12-10 at the half. That was a crucial part of the game. Buffalo could have delivered the knockout punch there. And Hostetler's ability there to run a run-oriented offense, to make the play that had to be made, and show toughness, you know what? That's his place in history. That when the call came, he answered the bell and led the Giants to a Super Bowl. And they can never take that away from them. Is there a ceiling on how far a team can realistically go when the weakest link is their head coach? I worry that a hideous Saleh performance will ultimately cost the Jets in the season. We've all been hard on Saleh, and he's deserved it because he's done a lot of dumb things and his record's awful. He has to grow in terms of leadership, in terms of smarts, in terms of game management with this team. But he's aided enormously by having a wise and veteran quarterback who not only is an all-time great, but also has complete command of the situation. That's a big advantage. That might help them overcome whatever issues they have to overcome. But there's no reason for Saleh not to not only get carried in this ride, but help lead this ride by growing into the job and understanding what the job is. Before you're going to be a proficient and productive head coach, you got to understand what it means to be a head coach. I think he has struggled with that. See you tomorrow after those Jets play the Broncos. Have a good day.